Hi Storytime lovers. Are you a birder? You know, a twitcher, a bird spotter, a bird watcher. All these words are synonyms, which means they have the same meaning. Bird watching is the activity of watching and studying birds in their natural surroundings. And the most famous bird spotters of all are the Blotter family. They can stay in their hide all day to spot a bird. Well, all the family except for Otto. And I'm going to tell you all about Otto just after we find out more about who wrote and illustrated the story of Otto Blotter, Bird Spotter. His name is Graham Carter, and he has been working for 16 years as a successful commercial artist. Recently, he started writing children's books. Otto Blotter was his debut book. Since then, he has written Alphamous A to Z and the recently released The Story Thief. Otto Blotter was published by Andersen Press, who specializes in picture books and children's fiction. Possibly their most well-known character is Elmer the Patchwork Elephant, created by David McKee. Now, before we start today's story, let me give you a little bird spotting challenge to see how good of a birder you actually are. Can you identify at least 5 types of birds in this story? Let's share our findings at the end of this video, and you'll also get to test your literary skills. So, pay attention to pictures and words, but most of all, sit back and enjoy our little visit to Turtle Dove Town. Turtle Dove was a town much like any other, except for one small difference. It was full of birds and bird spotters. And the most famous spotters were a family named Blotter. The Blotters spent every moment of every day spotting birds. They'd even turned their home into the perfect hide, so they never had to leave it. But young Otto Blotter was not a spotter. He didn't like staying indoors all day. What he liked was to explore. On this particular day, Otto made an extraordinary discovery. That's a huge footprint. Then another. That's the biggest poo I've ever seen. And another. Feathertastic. Then he made the most surprising discovery of all. Hidden in the bushes all alone sat the most unusual little bird. Otto wasn't allowed pets, but he couldn't just leave the little fellow. He scooped up Bird and sneaked him back to his room. Luckily, his family were too busy to notice. The next day, Otto took his feathery friend to all his favorite exploring spots and sneakily fed and bathed him after the rest of the family had gone to bed. But as the days passed, Otto started to notice some big changes. His little friend was not so little anymore, and Otto's secret was becoming too big to hide. Otto knew Bird was going to be discovered any minute. There was nothing more he could do to hide his huge friend. Luckily, Bird didn't like to see Otto upset. He knew this was the moment to show his friend something truly remarkable. Camouflage. Otto was over the moon. Now Bird could disguise himself as anything. It meant they could go anywhere. They could once again visit their favorite spots and go on fabulous adventures. And no one would ever know. Otto and Bird could not have been happier until the day they visited the zoo. As they passed family after family of meerkats, penguins, monkeys and stingrays, Bird seemed to grow sadder and sadder. Otto's thoughts flashed back to the day he first found Bird. The huge footprints, the giant feathers, the massive pile of poo. Suddenly, he realized Bird hadn't been alone. Bird had a family. But Otto was going to need help to find them. Luckily, Otto's family were expert bird spotters. Surprise! Look who I found! After recovering from meeting the most majestic bird ever discovered, the whole Blotter family set to work, helping Otto come up with a plan. By nightfall, they had made the tallest bird spotting tower ever built. The Blotters were sure they would spot Bird's family in no time now. Everybody, keep super still. Be a good fellow and pass me my night vision goggles. Oi, can I get down, please? They peered for hours and hours into the still, inky night, but they didn't spot a thing. Don't worry, Bird, said Otto. We will find your family. For me? From me? Family? Then something magical happened. Family! Cried Bird, glowing so brightly he lit up the whole night. In the distance, something began to rustle, something began to stir, and something began to glow. One by one, 3 even bigger birds came out of the darkness. They'd found them! Otto was really happy that his friend had found his family. But that didn't make it any easier when the time came to say goodbye. The Blotters hoped they would spot him again one day, though. After all, they were experts. From that day on, Otto became a top spotter himself. And the rest of the Blotters found that exploring with Otto led to all kinds of amazing discoveries. And the odd adventure. The end. So, little spotters, how many types of birds did you see? I'll let you know which ones I spotted. First of all, did you spot Bird in camouflage on the cover? Take a look again. There's also a toucan flying over Otto's head. Then there's a pheasant trying to avoid being spotted. A crane trying to do Bird's camouflage trick. An owl flying after nightfall. And on the last page, it's birds galore. A puffin, some flamingos, a woodpecker, and many more. Do you remember when I told you that picture books were as much about pictures as they were about words? Well, let's test your skills at word spotting. Let's see if you can spot the alliterations in the following sentences. If you watched the previous video, you might remember what an alliteration is. If you didn't, an alliteration is the repetition of the same consonant at the beginning of several words. Which consonant is repeated in this sentence? Turtle Dove was a town much like any other. It's the T sound. And in this one? The next day, Otto took his feathery friend to all of his favorite exploring spots. It's the F sound. And one more. There was nothing he could do to hide his huge friend. It's the H sound. What about Otto Blotter, bird spotter? I'm sure you noticed that there are many sound repetitions in this title, didn't you? There is an alliteration with B, but the repetition of the vowel sound O is an assonance, and the repetition of the consonant sound T is a consonance. Let's recap. An alliteration is the repetition of a sound at the beginning of several words, like blotter and bird. An assonance is the repetition of a vowel sound in a group of words, Otto Blotter, bird spotter. And a consonance is the repetition of a consonant sound in a group of words, Otto Blotter, bird spotter. Have you noticed that just like in The Story Thief, the author doesn't name the main character's best friend? Olive and octopus, Otto and bird. And because bird doesn't have a name, Graham Carter uses a literary device called a periphrasis to talk about him. A periphrasis is when you use several words to talk about something or someone instead of the actual word. Let's take a look at some sentences to see if you can spot the periphrases for bird. Otto wasn't allowed pets, but he couldn't just leave the little fellow. The little fellow is used to talk about bird. And in the next day, Otto took his feathery friend to all his favorite exploring spots. Bird is Otto's feathery friend. Hang on. Alliteration, consonants, assonance, periphrasis. Let's make sure you're not getting all muddled up with a little recap test. Can you match these literary terms with their example? Which one is an alliteration? It's B, with the repetition of B. Which one is a consonance? It's D, with the repetition of the consonant sound T. Which one is an assonance? It's C, with the repetition of the vowel sound O. And finally, which one is a periphrasis? It's A. His feathery friend is used to talk about bird. There are many more words, birds, and colours to spot in Otto Blotter. So if you want to do some more spotting, you can get your own copy of Otto Blotter by using the link below, or you can go to boxbird.co.uk to snap up a hard copy with an original drawing and personal message by Graham Carter. Please let me know about your bird spotting in the description box below. Take care, read on, and see you soon.